I'm Thuli Magubane and welcome to the Success Rate podcast. Very excited to be going through this journey. I'm here to discuss success. People talk about success and it's something that everybody aspires to have in life. We all want to be successful when we grow up. But success is just an interesting concept because we all have different definitions of success. And I guess what I might define as success may not be what you define as success. Sometimes people equate material things to success. Others equate freedom to success. So this podcast is here to talk about success, how people view it, and how they've attained it. So if you'd like to hear more about what we talk about, make sure that you subscribe. Click on the button and make sure you also click on the notification so that you know when new episodes are loaded. Today, we're actually going to be talking to an interesting man. His name is Craig B. Jacobs. I'm not going to mention what the B is for. He calls himself a warrior by day and a writer by night.
Wordsmith by night.
Oh, wordsmith by night, sorry. And he's a slashie. I think there's many of us in this generation who are slashies. So he's a slash writer, journalist, fashionista, fashion designer, an all-round wonderful individual. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you to you who invited me on this. This is very exciting.
I'm really happy to have you here. People who are slashies, are those people who don't want to be boxed. I think I call myself as well. Mm-hmm. So did you aspire to be a slashie or was it an evolution?
It was an evolution. I had a very clear idea from a really early age what I wanted to do. Surprisingly, I think I knew at the age of 5 or 6 that I wanted to be a writer.
Okay. So what happened? What was that moment that triggered that, or the aha moment that you realized this is what I want to do with my life? I want to write.
You know what? My mother always took me to the library, and I loved books. I loved reading. It was my happy place.
Yes.
And I knew I wanted to do something like that. I would always write. Mm. And then a pivotal thing happened in my childhood during the bad old days when there was violence on our streets. And my mother is the kind of person who's like a get up and go, I'm not going to stand for this nonsense kind of person.
Yes.
She actually contacted a family friend who was in what they call the tricameral parliament at that time.
Yes,
the fake thing where coloured and Indian people thought that they had power when they were really puppets. And she called an uncle and said, this is outrageous. How do they do this? And he said, I will mention it to Adrian Flock at our next meeting. And my mother was like, that's not good enough. So she called the newspaper.
Oh, okay.
The Cape Times, I think it was. And they came and they wrote our story. They told what happened in our streets. And I remember seeing the newspaper the next day where it was like they beat us with shamboks in our homes.
Wow.
And I thought, this is the power of this media.
True.
And that's what I want to do. Because I want to tell people stories, let them know what's going on in their lives.
So when you were growing up in the Cape Flats, obviously there's a lot of violence.
Yes.
And I guess you've just alluded to that.
Mm-hmm.
Was it difficult for you to see yourself as a writer because probably there weren't any writers or journalists around you?
I never thought of it like that. I never thought it through, I suppose I should say.
Yeah.
But what I'm really blessed with is I had an incredible support structure. I was in my primary school as well. We had, I went to Holy Trinity Primary School in Elsies River. And it was quite a nurturing space.
Yes, yeah.
And then I also think what happened when I went to high school and went to public school in Belhar, really on the Cape Flats, even more so. And my English teacher, Mrs. Louis, I wrote something for a task for school, and she questioned whether or not I had written a story.
Because it was that great.
So she gave me a task at that moment and said, write something else. Write about something you just experienced. And I remember writing that the first time we went up on the cable car. We were allowed to go up there, and I was excited about it. So I wrote that. And then she said, this is amazing. And she helped me start the school's first school newspaper.
Oh, wow. Bless English teachers. I think English teachers have been able to identify a lot of talent in people. And you're not the first person I've heard that. My English teacher told me that you have a future in writing. So, wow. Bless Mrs. Louis.
Yes.
Wherever she is.
Yes.
So coming into why we're here, I'd like to hear from you. What's your definition of success?
I think happiness for me is the most important thing. Yes, you do need to be financially secure.
Yes.
But I think there's a problem in the world today, and I discuss this a lot with my friends or entrepreneurs, that this idea about growth isn't realistic.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean if you're selling 1,000 products today, you have to sell 1,100 next week, and then 1,200, and then 2,000. Because that's not realistic. I think this concept about consumerism is the real problem in our society, because growth doesn't, for me, correlate with success. I think success for me is being able to capture a market where you have support. And then personal success is really about happiness. Waking up in the morning and being excited about what you're doing and being able to do it. Having the tools and the confidence and the satisfaction.
And I think happiness is very underrated.
Absolutely.
A lot of people think, why would you put happiness at the top of your list? And I truly agree with you. I mean, we could get into a whole discussion around how happiness, actually affects us as individuals and our performance overall.
Absolutely.
So I really agree with you on that. And then the myth, what is the biggest myth when it comes to success?
It's the flip side of that.
Yes.
Money in the bank will lead to happiness, because it doesn't.
True.
I mean, I know a lot of people who on paper are successful, who are the most miserable people I know. Because you can't get enough money.
True.
You know that.
Once you've reached a certain mark, you want more.
Yes.
And you always want more.
And then if you've made the billion, then it's like, what? What do I do now?
What do I wake up and do? Yeah.
So that's why I think, what's amazing in the world, and it's related to that, is this movement started by people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, where when you reach a certain point, philanthropy takes over and you give away your fortune.
Okay. And so I know one of the things you're really passionate about is sustainability.
Yes.
And eco-friendliness, and I guess green.
Yes.
Everything green. Hence, even your label, Fundezi, the main driving principle there is sustainability. So what attracted you to that?
Because I don't come from a fashion design background. I wanted to tell stories through clothing. And I thought that if I'm going to do something, I want to do something that has some form of meaning.
Yes.
And it's a cliche, but those words by Mahatma Gandhi must be the change you want to see in the world. I kind of thought clothing gives me that opportunity to do that. It can be a conduit for celebrating the continent. It can be a conduit for change.
True.
So that's pretty simplistically where it came from.
Great. Clothing can be used as a form of disguise. People always say you can fake it till you make it. So with you, do you use clothing as an extension of who you are? Or do you use it to maybe create new personas?
Look, I have to be honest here. I think I'm the most undesigner designer. Like, when it comes to clothing, like if you looked at my wardrobe at home, I think I have about 20 to 30 black t-shirts.
Wow.
All the same, exactly the same, except for some of them are round and some of them are V-neck. And I wear them all the time, usually with black pants or black shorts, because I don't want to think about clothing. In the morning, I just want to get out there and do things. But when I go out, the public persona is me in a suit.
Yeah.
And that is a form of armor, absolutely.
And not just any suit.
Bold.
Bold suits, bold colors, pink, green,
Yes,
blue.
I was never that person though.
Yes,
Hey,
yeah.
I mean, I think I went through a few of those points. You know, when you're trying to find yourself in your like 20s, you kind of play around and then you revert back.
Yeah.
But I think that the color and print is very much intrinsic to Fundudzi.
Yes.
And I feel joyful when I put on a suit.
Yes.
That's
It's your
colourful.
happy place.
Yes, it's my happy place. And also, I mean, it's saying when I'm wearing a suit, I'm at work now.
Yes.
You know, so this is part of the persona I'm putting on, especially when I'm going out and hitting the social circuit, which is my night job. I have to almost cajole the introverts.
Yes, yeah.
You know, because I'm naturally an introvert.
So you have to switch on. As soon as you put on that suit, it's like, Craig is on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and also looking at clothing as an extension of our success. People always say you have to dress a certain way if you're successful.
Yes.
Is that true? Do you believe in that?
I think that unfortunately humans are very, what's the word, simplistic, or they like tropes. So you do need to do that.
Yeah.
You need to dress the part. We judge people based on their clothes. And I think that's quite unfortunate because that's not appropriate. I mean, the most interesting people I know are people who don't necessarily wear designer clothes. I think that designer clothes as well become a crux for some people.
Yeah.
That the head-to-toe Gucci or Louis Vuitton.
I think it's taken personally. I think it's
Yes,
taken, yeah.
absolutely. So, but there are codes. You know, if your shoes are clean and looked after, then it says something about your personality, about your meticulousness. We do respect, women especially. A woman in the boardroom not wearing a suit, men look at her differently.
Or if you come wearing a miniskirt in a boardroom.
Again, that's a code, you know, absolutely.
You know, people look at you differently.
Yeah.
So when you started Fundudzi, you had a partner. But
Yes.
I heard your partner bailed. And you had 2 months to a fashion show.
Yes.
So tell us about that
You've
moment.
really done your research.
I want to know. So you've never put on a fashion show before.
No, I had done.
You
We
had
had
done one.
done some
You've
before.
done, but this is a new brand, and now you suddenly get
Yes.
2 months to put on this fashion show. Just take us through the journey. What was going through your mind, and what helped you to get through the period?
Okay, well, firstly, I just want to correct something. Pumla, I started with Pumla Tukana, who's an amazing fashion designer. She had her own label called Soul Spice, and I met her, and I thought she was absolutely fantastic. I had an idea of doing this thing called fashion. Stupidly sat in a fashion show, I thought, I can do this. Little did I know how difficult it was. And I think there came a point, we were in about 3 years, and because of the connections I had, everything went really quickly. From the idea, like 2-3 months later, we were shown at Cape Town Fashion Week.
Wow.
That same collection went and got shown in Stockholm, at Stockholm Fashion. And it was too much, too quick. And I think that with my naivety, thinking that commercially it was also going to go like that, didn't really happen. So there came a point when I think Pumla needed to go back and find herself. And the story I sold her about how successful we were going to become hadn't manifested. So, but it just happened to be at a pivotal moment that It was December. Now, firstly, in the fashion industry, everything closes in December. I'd signed a contract to show in January at Joburg Fashion Week, which was just launching. So, and she decided she was out. And I am not the kind of person who's going to throw in the towel. So I had to make a plan. And I tapped in my contacts. And then I also thought about it differently and thought, you know what? If you look at it as a project that you have to manage, how do you do it? I mean, I can't sketch.
You've got the ideas in your head.
I don't know how to switch on a sewing machine. But let me think about how I can plan this. So I planned it out. I was lecturing at LISOF, the London International School of Fashion, on trends. Reached out to Shauna Edelstein, who's the head of the school. She was starting an incubator with young designers. I found a couple from there, got them on board, and literally project managed everything. And then showed the collection end of January, got selected to do one of 4 designers to showcase the collection in Paris. And we were all young people then. It was me, David Lally, Thuli Cindy, and Tabani Mavundla. And when we were selected at that point to do this thing, the reaction wasn't exactly what I expected.
What was the reaction? Did people feel like you don't belong here?
Absolutely.
And was there any moment where you doubted yourself that you belonged in those?
You know,
that you did, you really needed to be there, or maybe there was someone else that could have taken that spot.
If you talk about pivotal moments, that was a pivotal moment because I got slated completely and utterly. The Sunday Times wrote a story, pretty much questioning whether or not I deserve to go and represent South Africa. It was ETV 702, and I remember someone who I admire greatly, who is quite a key person who captures fashion and style in South Africa. He wrote, if you had any question about why he got to go on this trip, you can just look at the line of notes for Gavin Raja, who was the person behind the project, lining notes for his show where he thanks his friend Craig James. It's still something that lives with me, imposter syndrome.
Yes, I was going to get into that you doubted yourself. That imposter syndrome. I think we all have it to a certain degree. How have you worked through it?
Well, Gavin actually said to me, see this as an opportunity to prove people wrong. And when you're in that vulnerable stage, you don't think about that. And you think, no, but why are they picking on me? But I just thought, let me put on my big pants, big boy pants, and try my best to prove them wrong.
Okay. In all our journeys to success, there's individuals that you could look back and say, this person was very instrumental in getting me to where I am now. So I suppose Gavin Raja is one of those individuals. Yes. Who else?
My parents, definitely my mother. I didn't realize until towards the end of his life how pivotal my dad was, because he taught me another side of myself in terms of being hardworking, almost like a drone, And I realized when I talk about the way, like I mentioned, I think that's part of him. Rans always says, it's like you and your father are so similar that nothing lets you down. My mom especially, because my mom comes from a really damaged childhood. And she's taught me that no matter what your circumstances are, you can succeed. You can do things.
You can rise.
Just believe. Believe in yourself. So that's really important. Gwen Gill in journalism because she recognized something in me. She introduced me to this world. Her and my news editor at the time, Jenny Anstey, they recognized it. Just come back to South Africa. 98, the whole world was different. Growing up as a colored kid on the Cape Flats, I mean, I was aware of who people were, but I never had access to things. So going out on the social circuit with Gwen Gill allowed me to meet people and find out all about this dynamic, exciting, changing society.
South Africa, yeah.
Yes.
So how was the social scene back then compared to now?
Oh, very different.
In the late 90s to where we are.
So I can answer that question by talking about when I came back to journalism, right? So I left journalism when I started my clothing label, and around, I think it was about 2006, Gwen calls me and says, I want you to do the column with me.
Yes.
I said, Gwen, that's not my world anymore. I'm not a journalist. I'm very happy being an entrepreneur. But thank you. I'm honored for you thinking of me. And then I reflected on that. And I spoke to another friend of mine, Kim Tipe, who's also quite pivotal in my life. One of the most incredible marketers globally. And she said, are you crazy?
Sometimes
she said, do you realize how, even from your business, having this access again to everyone who's influential in society would open doors for you? So I did that for a while, and then in their infinite wisdom in 2010, out of all times, the newspaper decided to cancel the column. So there was this gap from 2010 until when they asked me to come back, now about 7 years ago. So that was about
2016.
2016. And this is the world of social media, the world where newspapers and print are undergoing quite
a lot of pressure, I would say.
Yes. So I'm thinking, does the social column, is it still relevant? And I went there and I realized that actually it still can be, but the world is changing. You need to reflect them. I mean, influencers today are ubiquitous.
There weren't any influencers in the late 90s, I suppose. In the early 2000s as well, yes.
Yeah, so social media has changed the game. The kids today are something else. So I have great admiration for them.
What have they taught you, the kids today?
Look, the fact that they're so digitally literate, the fact that they're so confident. I always think, look, my generation, even in media, like that imposter syndrome is part of it, but also it's like you're not good enough. You know, we're raised as Black people to not believe that we were worth it. And so even in media, and even as a designer, you keep wondering, when is the curtain going to fall down? Whereas today kids build their own curtain.
True. But I suppose you can back it up. And I find that with the younger generation, people want the titles,
Absolutely.
They want the accolades, but there's no substance behind it.
Well, this is very important as well. You know, in my mid-journey space, this young kid reached out to me because he wanted me to mentor him. Yeah. And I thought, what good spur? Okay, cool. I'll meet you for coffee. I was in the middle of things. I can give you like half an hour of my time. And this kid was still at high school. But he was about to graduate. And he says to me, so I said, why do you want to be a fashion designer? And he said, I'm actually interning now, Elle magazine.
Oh, wow.
And I realized on my school holidays, but I realized it's going to take me too long to become an editor. So I thought I'd rather become a fashion designer. And I said to him, do you realize how long I've had my clothing label? And it shook him. They don't, the 10,000 hours that people talk about that you need to put in.
Yes.
I think that's really important because for me, for my success and what I'm doing, I've never wanted to just realize that if it happens overnight, you don't appreciate it.
True. So when you started from Dutsi, as you said, you attended a lot of fashion shows.
Yes.
Thought to yourself, how difficult can this be? I can do this. So when you were starting out, how did you rate the success? What was the success rate of Fundutsi in your mind before you started?
My idea about fashion then was kind of different at that time when it came to fashion designers. It was all about the red carpet. It was all about, creating these bespoke garments. Whereas I wanted to do multiple. I was like, I'd rather do like 50 to 100 minimum of something and have more people wear clothing and give them access to fashion that they didn't have before. So I wanted to be in multiple retail outlets in South Africa and globally. That was my...
that was your benchmark.
Yes, that was my benchmark.
If you obtained that, then you'd be successful. So did you obtain that?
I did, and I realized that's not necessarily
the success. Okay.
I was in one of the biggest retailers in South Africa. Most horrible experience ever. I was like, this is not what I want to do. Boutiques as well. When you get into boutiques and then they want the best sellers, and then you produce the best sellers, and they want them again and again.
Yes.
And then there comes a point when you're producing them because you think that's what they want, and then they change their mind. So it's kind of, and even globally, selling internationally, very early in my career, again, out of the blue, a sustainable portal in LA reached out to me and said,
stock your brand,
Yeah, it was by this incredible guy who actually owns Patron and Paul Mitchell hair products and stuff, and he was starting this sustainable marketplace that had endorsement from a whole range of people, from Kim Kardashian to I don't know who. And shipping from South Africa was a logistical nightmare. Stocking in a few stores internationally, then if you deliver too late, they cancel the order.
Sure.
So it's quite a tricky thing. Absolutely, there's ways of still being able to attain it. But I realized that's not necessarily.
We know you as a successful journalist, fashion designer. But is there something that you've tried and you failed miserably?
Well, I think I fail all the time with my clothing label. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you need failure. I fail all the time when I try to do piano moves. And I'm adamant I'm still going to learn how to do it.
Okay.
Yes, it's on my list.
Okay. I know you do a lot of social events and then the dance floor opens and then...
No, social media is bad. I'm a little bit addicted to TikTok.
Yeah. So hopefully one day I'll see a TikTok video of you.
I've done them really badly. They're embarrassing.
Okay.
But I still post them. Because I'm like, you know this thing about people having masks and people only want to show a certain side of themselves. I think that's so problematic and it's unhealthy for your mental health. So whatever I do, if I fail in something, I'm going to tell people about it because I don't think we must hide behind things.
Just building on that, the perfection syndrome. How do you deal with that? Being a perfectionist.
Is you saying I'm a perfectionist? Is that what you're telling me?
You don't regard yourself a perfectionist?
Look, I'm a Leo on the cusp of Virgo. You're a Virgo. You're a perfectionist.
I know.
I try to be as much of a perfectionist, and when I fail perfectly.
I like that.
So,
I fail perfectly. And I'm proud of my failure when I made it.
Absolutely.
Wear it with pride.
Yeah.
So in that long career, what are some of the moments that stand out for you that you're really proud of?
I think my mom coming to my first fashion show, that was an incredibly proud moment. The fact that I pulled it off was a proud moment. The first time I saw my name published in a newspaper was a proud moment. Absolutely. And that proud moment, actually, first time, I think I was 9.
Oh, wow.
When my name was published in a newspaper for the first time.
Yeah. And you thought, I want more of this in my life.
Yes.
So talking about more, I mean, do you think you have enough? Are you aspiring to get more in life?
So I'm turning 49, right?
50's right there.
Yes.
It's looking at you.
So I'm toying with this idea of, actually I've started drawing up a list of all these things that I haven't achieved yet. And when I talk about achievements, they're little things. So some of them are little, like I don't know how to swim. Growing up in Australia, right, the first thing they do when you go to school is you got to learn to swim. And I was in high school. So we were
missed that moment.
No, they still made you do it.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I was with this funny group of like 5 or 6. We were all immigrants. There was one guy who was from Egypt. The other one was from Malaysia. The other one was from Ecuador. Because people don't realize how multicultural Australia is. And some of them couldn't speak English properly. But what we had, this group of misfits, what we had together was we all couldn't swim. So they send you to learn to swim. And on sports day, which was a Thursday after lunch, right? In assembly, everyone's in assembly, and they call the learn to swimmers to go off to their excursion first. So everyone in school, the ones who don't play rugby or soccer or whatever, knew these are the guys that cannot even swim. And I still couldn't swim after that.
So how did you get out of it? How did you not learn to swim?
I think that they gave up after all. Like, he's not going to learn how to swim. So I do want to learn how to swim.
Okay, so you've created some kind of bucket list.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a bucket list of things. That's one of them.
So you are a writer. Have you ever thought about writing a book about your life? Sharing an autobiography?
You know, a book is on the list. But I don't know what kind of book it's going to be. Maybe I don't need to speak to someone because I never thought my life would be interesting as an autobiography.
I think so. I think everybody's life. We all go through, as I said earlier, highlights and lowlights.
Yes.
And there are valuable lessons that you can share with others. So I think with you, even in your journey, maybe give us 3 lessons that you can impart with our audience. Some really important things that you've learned about life.
There's a few. The most important thing is to be hungry.
Not physically.
No, I love food. I love food. The Mkaba doesn't lie. But yes, you've got to be hungry for things. You've got to be excited about them. You've got to want. I think that's really important. Then you filter from there, because filtering is also important. It's crucial. That's lesson number 1. Number 2 is something, and for me, why not, is such an important thing that you've got to, if you think of things like that,
Yes.
It opens you up to opportunities. And then the other one is, I believe that challenges are important because they are opportunities for growth. And then there's one more. You said 3, but I can give you one more.
We have Pansela.
Yes, sorry.
And
this one is, I keep thinking about this a lot, and I see a lot of people doing this. And I think that you're stopping yourself by doing this, is when people are not willing to acknowledge when they're wrong. Because when you do that, when you don't say so, people think saying sorry shows vulnerability. I'm like, no, sorry shows that I'm confident and I recognize that I might have done something wrong or I might have not spoken to you appropriately. And when you do that, you are allowing your truth to come through.
I like that. So I'll always remember that, the hunger.
Yes.
Is one of the things that drive us. And I think, just as you said, but it also comes to humility. I think a lot of people are not humble enough to acknowledge that I've done something wrong.
Yes.
And I need to apologize. Because there's a lot of pride. You have to calm down. No one wants to be wrong. But Craig, before we wrap, so the last thought on success. What do you want our listeners to walk away from this conversation today?
The beauty of success is we all have it. We just need to find it or recognize it.
True.
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, just completing that essay at school, not your grades, just completing it is a success.
Yeah.
Being able to raise your children, starting the business, just doing it. Most people don't even start it. You know, how many times do people say, "Oh, I had the same idea."
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people that do, they are successful. It doesn't mean that no one knows what you're doing. You're still so, I mean, I think this idea about, like, same with, like I was talking in the beginning about growth. I mean, I think success, we all have it in us. So let's embrace it and let that be the fuel in our tank.
I like that. Craig, it was interesting getting to know you and some of your thoughts on success. And
thank you.
We really, I think more than anything else, my biggest takeaway is that we need to recognize our own success. I think we're always looking at other people and not recognizing what we've achieved as individuals. So, and I think this also goes for you. Take more time in this next year of life to reflect and to celebrate more the little achievements and the big achievements. So it's really been a pleasure chatting to you, getting to know you, and hearing your wonderful thoughts on success.
Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed the conversation with Craig here and you want to hear more conversations like this, make sure that you subscribe to the Success Rate podcast. We're going to have more interesting conversations, bring you interesting guests, and we're going to make sure that we hear from you as well in terms of how you define success. And more than anything else, we want you to also recognize your own success as individuals. Looking forward to continuing this journey with you.